Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. Delighted to be joined by Nick Thring, who is the MD of Duncan Yeardley. So Nick, thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invite.
I know you've been a hard man to get hold of to get on here.
I'm finally got you on. You finally pinned me down on Friday the 13th. So hopefully neither of us are superstitious.
No, not at all. Perfect timing. So you've been in the estate agency since 1990. So just a few years.
I know I don't look it.
I know you look incredibly young. So what made you jump into estate agency?
Well, for me, it was a bit of a weird one, actually, because from a relatively young age, I think probably around 13, maybe 14, I wanted to be an estate agent.
Really?
And yeah, no, really?
And you've
never heard that before, have you? Genuinely did. So I remember my parents were selling their house in Wokingham, and the estate agent came round, and I was in, and I just sort of tuned in as to what was happening, what he was doing. I thought, okay, I like that. Looked out the window, saw his red XR3i. From there on, I thought, yeah, that's something I'd like to do. And then when I had the opportunity of doing work experience, when I was 15, I wrote to 3 local companies. First 2 came back very quickly and said, sorry, no, we can't accommodate. And I thought, oh dear. And then the third one came back, which was GA Property Services, General Accent at the time, said, yeah, we'd love to have you. So I went and did a week's work experience there. Absolutely loved it. Got on very well with the manager there, Tim Atkinson, who is now best friend of mine, was best man at a wedding. And so, over 30 years later, we're still thick as thieves. Ended up then after work experience, they offered me a position doing Saturdays and evenings. So I used to do after school on a Tuesday, Saturday, used to tuck me in the corner. At that age, I looked probably about 9 when I was 15. I'd still have braces on, so they used to tuck me in the corner, but used to do phone rounds and so on. And then offered me a full-time position, went over to their Bracknell office and started in 1990. And genuinely have never looked back. It was a great market to go into. Obviously, the market wasn't great at the time. I didn't know anything any different. With General Accident, we were unfortunately dealing with a lot of repossessions at that point. So it's a bit of a weird and wonderful market. But it was just a very exciting career for me. Literally 12-hour days. Loved it, just thrived on it. Had a great team around, and it was onwards and upwards from there.
So that's really interesting. So at the start, you were already rejected by 2 estate agents.
Yes.
So being an estate agent, we get rejected on a daily basis.
We do.
How did you deal with rejection so young? And what advice have you got to people that are watching this, maybe starting off similar to you, about rejection?
Definitely. I can remember at the time how I did feel. Actually, I still can, because it's something I wanted to do, and I thought I'm going to end up in Tesco or Lun Poly or wherever it was at the time, and my other friends doing something for the sake of it. But I think it just goes to show that, by hanging on in there for that last, the other few days when it did come in, and I'd already had a bit of a plan. I remember, right, okay, maybe I need to write to 2 or 3 more different estate agents. But I think, it just goes to show you've got to be resilient on these things, haven't you? And you've got to deal with things in context. There's always opportunities out there. So I've always been very half glass full, from a young age. And I think hopefully it's been one of my main attributes, certainly since I've been running my own business. When you are faced with adversity, then, I often am in that position where I will dig deeper and make sure that there is a positive outcome. And I know it's a lot harder for some people. I'm very fortunate from that point of view. I think the way I'm wired, but certainly encourage people just to, keep pushing on and things will come good.
So what I like what you said there, at 15, you had a plan. So you didn't have just plan A, I'm going to write to 3 estate agents. You were thinking, well, if they say no. So again, that's very wise and very mature at such a young age. Where did that come from?
I think I was very fortunate that my dad was quite a successful businessman back in the sort of late 80s. And I wasn't, like many estate agents, school wasn't for me. Usual, if you read my reports, if Nick put as much effort into his work as he did as to entertain in the class and all that, then he'll do very well. So I couldn't wait to leave school. What was true. So I think at that point, as I say, I decided what I wanted to do. And I remember, so it's 3 companies, Robinson & Co., Mann & Co. and GA to write to. And I had a list of 3 other agents that I was going to go back to after that. I remember one was Parker's. I can't remember the other 2 in truth. But I think, again, it was probably a bit of help from my dad. I remember him helping me do the letter and so on. And then me cycling there to pop them through their letterbox. I think, again, it was just I had the bee in my bonnet. That's what I wanted to do. And as I say, it all worked out well.
Great. And I love the fact you talk about this growth mindset. So again, where did that come from as well? And again, why is it so important to have that growth mindset?
As I think I've always been very fortunate like that. Even before I decided to be an estate agent, I had probably 4 paper rounds, mowed lawns, washed cars, did a milk round, wherever I could earn money. It was, what can I do more? And as I say, very fortunate. Both my parents, certainly my dad, a very, very positive outlook. So I think he's always been very encouraging right up until now, throughout my career. And I think partly it's also who you surround yourself with. There's always going to be people out there that are going to sap the energy out of you. And it's obviously how you deal with that. I like to think now, as I've grown older, I can help around, and certainly a number of my colleagues and employees and so on, when they're feeling maybe a little bit down on their luck. I'd like to think that that's one of my plus points, that, you can put an arm around someone, physically, metaphorically around someone, encouraging people and, as I say, just making sure that people are on the right track.
Okay, so the market's definitely changed from where
Yes.
it was, and it's a lot harder. And you mentioned repossessions in the 90s and the early 90s. Don't think we're there.
No, we're not. Nowhere near.
Not there. But a lot of your team, a lot of your colleagues may not have faced the same challenges that both you and I faced then, and the 2008, 2009 and times. And you talked about putting your arm around them. How are they managing to deal with that, and what are you doing to help?
Really good question. Because we found, so I run Duncan Yeardley, but we did quite a big acquisition back in May. So we've gone from 2 to 5 offices now. And obviously getting to know the team there, and also in the new business, we've got a slightly younger team, particularly on the sales side. So as you say, a number of those have really only worked in the hypermarket over the last 2 or 3 years. So in the nicest possible way, very good, but been polite order takers, that phrase. And over the last, certainly in Duncan Yeardley, we were beginning to see the heat come out the market. We've always prided ourselves in being nimble as an agent. So we adapted pretty quickly from that side. But again, we had, unfortunately, the majority, but 2 or 3 people in the business that were either in denial or certainly struggling to grasp it. So a lot of time very closely with the team. We don't have a particular hierarchy in our business. I enjoy being in the offices. I join as many morning meetings as possible, pop in as much as I can, spend some time with the guys, both collectively, but certainly one-on-one. Just giving them that helping hand. And I think encouragement more than anything, because what we have very much is a mindset thing, isn't it? You and I know that there's plenty of activity out there at the moment. Yes, it is a more price sensitive market. So after I worked for GA, I went to work for Romans, and back in 1991, when Romans was only just nearly 2 years old. So we had 3 offices before we opened Bracknell. Dale Norton was obviously at the helm. And I remember, he's been a big influence, for many people who work for him, but it's always remained with me. A market makes a market, and what we were operating in back in the early 90s was exactly that. Forget all the noise that's going around you, get your head down, get on with it, get the properties on at the right prices, and it will come good. So, that stuck with me. And there's a lot of positive conversations around that. And we have found through what we do, we also use as yourself. We worked with yourself before, and Ian White we still work very closely with, who does a lot of training with ourselves. Both he did a group session recently and some one-to-ones, and the outcomes have been very positive, and we've got some good results. The last 3 months for us has been incredibly positive.
And that's fantastic to hear, and it's great that there's positive news rather than CNN, the constant negative news that everybody's talking about on the
blah
market.
blah blah.
Etc. And I think you summed it up nicely, or Dale summed it up nicely. The market makes a market. You can control what you can control.
Exactly.
So you can't control the outside influences, but can you control picking up that phone, making that call, asking those disruptive questions, being that deal maker rather than that order taker? 100%.
Yes.
There's so many opportunities out there.
All those things, yeah. And it's a more rewarding market, isn't it? And I think that's what the guys now are beginning to appreciate. Yes, they are having to hunt and fight for those opportunities and those deals more. But when they do come together, rather than it just, right, we did that as a process, on to the next one, it's, as I say, they're getting a lot more recognition and reward.
So you touched on morning meetings there, and you touched on one-to-ones. And I see some agents that are very, I suppose, consistently inconsistent of having morning meetings and having their one-to-ones. What are the benefits for morning meetings and one-to-ones for you and your colleagues?
So we all work quite closely within our business, and certainly, obviously, as a result of COVID and so on, now we have Teams and the ability for people to be able to work remotely a little bit more and in different offices. But I think particularly a well-structured morning meeting, there's so much that you can get out of it in terms of the obvious, reviewing what's gone on so far from yesterday. Good opportunity for everyone to get together for 20 minutes, half an hour without interruption. Mainly though, and I think this is where sometimes we've been weak and we have to get things back on track, is looking for those opportunities. So one, what have we missed, and what can we go back on? Celebrating our successes, that's important. We make a point of doing that throughout the day. I'm a great advocate for people championing one another, particularly at the moment when it can often feel like a bit of a slog, but also I think having that plan going forward. So wins and challenges, what are we up against? Is the other thing, because I think that particularly there are more challenges at the moment. But making sure that people have got a clear plan and structure for the day and the week ahead. We do kind of individual pledges, targets. We have very much a team culture, so all of our guys are paid office commission. There are various personal incentives and so on that those that certainly dig deep can earn very well from. But particularly, we do make a point of spending that time with people as individuals as well, doing those one-to-ones. We have those structured each quarter, but we do take people out the office a lot as well when whether it's positive or perhaps they do need a bit of a nudge or some encouragement in certain areas at the moment, and identify who really needs to have a bit more time spent with them.
I love your language. It's not having a go at somebody; it's nudging and encouragement.
Absolutely. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you do get that frustration, but I know, I'm sure we've had a few of those as well. But it is, I think people do, we like to think we've got the right people in our business, and they do need that help and support. So
congratulations on going from 2 to 5 offices.
Thank you.
How do you deal
with the bags under my eyes?
There you go. Here's the next question. So how do you deal with that integration then? And also, how do you build a culture when you've acquired a company that may be culturally a very different fit? So
great question, Stephen. And actually, it's not been as much as a challenge as I thought that it may be. So for us, the dynamics now of our business are, we've got 5 offices. We've got one in Ascot, Duncan, Yeardley, and then in Bracknell as well, which is certainly our flagship office, if you like, and where we started. And then the company that we acquired, Sears, have got an office in Wokingham and also 2 in Bracknell. So we have 3 offices now in Bracknell. And for the last 12 years, we've been competing up against each other. We did the acquisition. Somehow we managed to keep it under wraps, and it took a good 6 or 7 months to go through. So when it did happen, it was all of a sudden, wow, okay, big news for both teams. Fortunately, the business that we have acquired is not dissimilar. It's a family-run business. They did certainly have a slightly different ethos to us, but I'd say a very similar culture. And the way that it had been run, so for us to go in there and make some positive changes. So there's a few quick wins that we did to align with what we do with our culture at Duncan Yeardley, which was very well received. And yeah, there have been some difficult times that we've had, or challenging times over the last 3 or 4 months in terms of navigating. Yeah. So it's now gone from, right, you're not necessarily, there's still ones that they are going through the same door on where they're competing, but more around that collaboration. And I think that's timed quite well with the market that we're going in. And I genuinely think that, as within other countries and so on, in this, certainly you go back to when you and I started and so on, anything you could do to trip up the competitor. Whereas now I think, we have all grown up a little bit more, and yes, we are in competition. We are fighting for market share, et cetera, et cetera. However, there's a lot to be said for actually working together. And we've had some brilliant success stories over the last 3 or 4 months, chain building, helping each other, being strategic in terms of appointments. So we are going down to where we can end up both winning the business rather than not at all. So yeah, overall it's worked well. Again, there's been some people that have been more receptive than others, but again, that's for me and a couple of the key people that we've got in our business that have been driving that forward. So it'd be interesting to see how it does play out, and we'll make some decisions next year as to whether we decide to continue to run them as they are, or do something as one.
So starting from scratch and building a culture.
Yeah.
How'd you do that? How'd you get everybody to buy into it?
I think it definitely very much comes from the top. I've always believed that. I think, I'm far from perfect, but I think the way that, I like to operate, I've always been, I want to treat people how I would like to be treated. And, certainly when I was younger, I think some of the managers and so on that I had, particularly when I was, I got off to a good start in my career. I got my head down, in the first year or so, was top negotiator and, across the Thames Valley, the Southeast region and so on for year. But I just remember this one guy, I won't name him. I think he's still in the industry, but, whatever I did, his way of trying to get me to be motivated was, Nick, you could do better than that. I know, what about, you sold 20 houses this month, it's 30 next month, sort of thing. There was never a compliment there. And that kind of stuck with me, really. So again, I think just the way that I operate, and hopefully being, a pretty positive person, spending time with people, just making sure that, they all feel that they're being, well looked after within the business, and actually part of the journey. We are, although we've grown in size, we're still a very small business, and that's the great thing. We've got 40, 45 people now across both businesses, but, again, the people that we do employ are very much the right people. We've got some quite unassuming estate agents in our business, and that's actually something that Ian White identifies. And he said, when he walks into our offices, he said, they're not obvious people, but they're just great people. They've got wonderful people skills. They're passionate about what they do, love delivering great service, and they really do buy into, our culture and what we stand for as a business. And I think if you get those people engaged straight away, then to form that culture is very easy.
Where do you find these people then who've got these great people skills, that are passionate and want to give fantastic customer service?
Well, it's not always easy, to be honest with you. We found people, there's been a number of people that have come into our business that haven't been in the industry. And I know, certainly when people are recruiting, particularly for experience, they're looking for, someone has ideally got 18 months experience, 2 years experience, want to get to the next level. I kind of disagree with that slightly. We've actually found we've had a better response from finding people that maybe haven't had any direct experience. So we've got people who've been cabin crew for airlines, worked in the travel industry, worked in retail. And, a couple of people that we've had, one guy, who worked for us, worked in a shop. I was really impressed by him, actually complimented on it there, gave him He's no longer with us, unfortunately. Now he's moved away, but he was a great example and was with us for about 3 years of someone that no background or experience, but just had all the right attributes.
Fantastic. So dealing with stress is another one. Having to manage 44, 45 people, having to manage an acquisition. How do you deal with that?
Well, I've got blood pressure tablets, so they help. But it's definitely, it is a bit of a challenge at times. It's interesting because I guess for me, we had Duncan Yeardley that we acquired back in 2012, and up until 2021, we were one office. I think with a lot of us, really, COVID taught me a lot, and some people decided, right, I'm going to rein back and do things differently. For me, I decided to sort of, I wanted to march on. The recent acquisition we did was more out of opportunity rather than, we were particularly targeting this company. We were keeping an open mind. But yeah, I'm wired in a way that I do have a lot of energy still. I've always been a pretty poor sleeper. So, wake up early in the morning and, get on with it, really. But I do enjoy it. I find it rewarding. I like working with our team. I like people doing well. And, I don't like to think I'm driven by ego at all. I never, sort of have been. I'm not looking to empire build or anything like that, but I want to create opportunities for the people that we have got. I'm not getting any younger. And really over the next sort of couple of years, we do want to be creating more of a succession plan for those key people within our business to create those opportunities. So that's the bit that I thrive and enjoy.
And it's great to see your passion and love for it. It comes across and shows. And actually,
Good.
one of the
things is the case
that I picked up on, you got asked the question, the thing I like best about my job, and it's supporting your team by giving them the best tools and helping them thrive and develop their skills, which I absolutely love. So what are the best tools, if you are happy to share some trade secrets? And what is helping them thrive to get to the next level?
So I think, for us, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, particularly when the market does toughen up a bit, let's get back to basics and all those things. But I think there's a lot to be said for that. So training and teaching them to do the basics well. And I think we can often, I've often said to people, and I think it's probably why I've done reasonably well at it. Our business is not difficult. We're not rocket scientists. We're not saving babies' lives. We are, providing a service. And actually, if you get it right and keep it straightforward, stick to those strategies and behaviours, then you'll do well. So I think from that side, again, going back to how we train people and encourage people to operate. But in terms of the tools, we've always been very much embracing, a lot of technology, and the people that I was a bit of a sort of lone ranger, to be honest with you, for a while. And then I knew Ian White because we were both at Romans at the same time, but, we went off on different paths. And we re-engaged with Ian, I think back in sort of 2016, 17. And he's been a huge help to our business. Obviously, he's well connected, certainly in the prop tech world. So, he's helped us, to find some good tools. So the ones that we have got for our guys, I'd say at the moment, is we use WhatsApp for Business, which has been a great one with a company called SalesRook, which integrates into Repit. That's been a bit of a, use it loosely, but game changer for our team. Just now the world's changing. As you say, the phone is their best friend. You want to encourage them to have those conversations and so on. But we know that people don't always pick up or answer emails. They do actually answer WhatsApps quite quickly. So that's been a good one for us. We are very hot on social media, both in terms of what we do as a company, in how we promote ourselves and our culture and what we stand for, but also we use a platform as well to get more eyeballs on our properties and our website as well, and that's worked incredibly well. So they're just a couple of bits there that we do. We've also got rid of a few things recently. We grew quite fat after COVID, to be honest with you, and we felt that a number of things weren't relevant, and particularly with the new acquisition now, which was quite a basic company by comparison to us, we haven't just steamed in there and put everything that we've got it Duncan Yeardley and, we feel goes well, we're actually trialing a few different things there with different suppliers. So it is giving them the tools. Again, we find some people embrace it better and will use those, and others, don't. So, but I think there's a lot to be said now for having that backup, and rather in the past where I've gone, right, we need another bum on a seat, is actually looking where, something I picked up from Peter Knight and Property Academy and so on. How can you outsource? Who's what tech's out there, AI, those sort of things that are coming into play now. And it is really looking at those a lot harder before you start to think, right, do we need another person?
Okay, I agree with AI. So there's a lot going on in that space.
Huge amount, yeah. We're as a company, we're playing around with it a bit, but not even scratching the surface yet, are we?
No, not at all. So I noticed you're also Property Mark members for ALA and National Association of Estate Agents.
Yep.
Why is it important to you to have those qualifications?
I think for a number of reasons, really. I've been personally, Property Mark member for late 90s. I think I qualified both NAEA and ALA. So I think, from a compliance and legislation point of view, have used training bits from and so in the past, but just keeping abreast of what's going on out there. But I think, from a I did it a little bit from a credibility point of view. Again, when I was certainly out valuing more and so on, I could explain to people as to what this does mean, the benefits, both for me and the company that you're now going to be dealing with. And I think actually over the last 3 or 4 years, there have become more benefits. I think they've upped their game, to be honest with you, in terms of what they're doing now to support the industry. I'm kind of all up for qualification, to be honest with you, within reason. I think the right qualification, we don't want to drive good people out of the business. But I think, if there's a way that we can continue to improve our standards, and actually, funnily enough, only last week with our quarterly reviews and so on, we're just understanding as to which people within our business do want to look at doing the level 3 qualification, and supporting them on that. So I think they're a great organisation to be with. I think particularly on the ALA side, on the letting side, with their helplines and support and all those things, when you do have a tricky situation, then they're great to be able to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Brilliant, thank you. So one final question. How do you self-develop yourself? I know you mentioned Peter Knight, I know you mentioned the property company and their podcast books that have helped you along the way. Obviously you've got some fantastic mentors that you've also mentioned, Dale and Ian, who are exceptional.
Indeed. I think for me, as I say, for probably up until I was so sort of ahead in the game, and when you are running a small business, so from 2012 to that 2015, 16, I was doing everything. You were running the business, looking after things, still out valuing, still doing viewings, that sort of classic one office operator, if you like. And then we just got to that stage where, and it's been very hard at times to, sit back from that. But some people probably would call me a control freak, but I just like to be involved and know what's going on with everything, and you're a estate agent at heart. So what I did learn from that point, as I say, not to be so much of a lone ranger. We're members of RAN, and I'm actually advisory council member for Thames Valley. Really enjoy there. There's a great group of guys and ladies, guys and girls on there who've got some fantastic businesses, many that and I love going to those meetings. We've got another one next week up at Moneypenny. Really looking forward to that. Property Academy, something I only joined about a year ago, but again, very good group that I'm in there. We all got on well. And I think particularly in these times, to be honest with you, where things are now becoming a little bit more challenging, it's not just at those meetings, it's things that we do in between, now having that ability to pick up the phone to someone and just say, look, can I just, pass this by? What do you think? And you can pick and choose a bit as to who those people are. So, yes, particularly, probably not so much now, but, particularly around lockdown and so on, a lot of podcasts. I'm probably more of a listener than a reader, to be honest with you. The concentration levels aren't always great on that side, but, I do pick up a lot from that, Josh Fegan, love listening to his stuff, short, sharp, and always will make a point of things that I do pick up on like this to make sure I share with the team as well. And not just me conveying it, but ping it out to them on our WhatsApp group or email. Just listen to this. It's a couple of minutes. Things that you've done, Stephen, shared with the team as well. So, all sorts of resources.
Brilliant, lovely. Well, I'm incredibly grateful for your time. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Everything you've ddone. If people want to get hold of you, how do they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn and also on our website, duncanyeardley.co.uk. If you go to there, then my email address and so on our Meet the Team page.
Brilliant. Well, thank you everybody for watching and listening. And share it, get it out there. I'm sure Nick's going to share it on his WhatsApp group, so all his colleagues like it and share it because he's kind like that. Nick, you've been a wonderful
It's half an hour that they won't get back.
What they're doing is here's somebody who's passionate, who's got the drive, who's got that hard work ethic to succeed, and has shared loads of goals. So thanks very much, and goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Have a good weekend.
You too.